Hey there, welcome back to Keeping Ag Real. I'm your hostess, Jenny Schweigert. Today's episode is slam-packed with some great info from the always energetic and positive Brooke Clay. We discuss her role as the producer of RFD TV's program, Chasing Down Madison Brown. We're going to talk about saving some booty and then making tough decisions in life. I hope you enjoy this episode. Message me after you have listened and let me know what you thought. You can find me on Twitter at KeepingAgReal or at Jen Schweigert. You can also search on Facebook or shoot me an old-fashioned email, jenny@keepingagreal.com. Before we jump into this episode, I would like to mention that Keeping Ag Real is part of the Farm and Rural Ag Network. You can find out more information about our network, the other podcasts and vlogs available at farmruralag.com. Let's dive right into the episode with Brooke Clay, and as always, thank you for listening. Where are you right now? Because you tend to be in all kinds of different places when we talk.
Great question. So I am actually in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
So that's like home.
This is home, Payne County, America. This is where I call home. It's a good place to be. Actually, it's almost my favorite season. As soon as the college kids leave and go back to their respective corners of the country, Stillwater becomes this safe haven where you can park on the front row. It's a grocery store, and I love it so much being a local.
But did you grow up there? Because sometimes you're with your grandma in Indiana, so then I get confused.
Yes. So great question. So 20 years ago, June 1st, my family moved from Franklin, Indiana to Perkins, Oklahoma. So I like to think of myself as a transplant. We spend holidays and summers historically in Indiana, but I call Oklahoma home. I've been here longer than anywhere. I would say I fit in a little bit better in the ranching country than the Corn Belt.
I think you fit in really well, and you do a great job with all the pictures. I was looking at some that you posted on Instagram earlier today.
Oh, thank you.
Do you get to spend a lot of time out working with the cattle?
I do a lot when I'm home. I wouldn't say I'm the number one hand, but when I am home and it's a weekend or I'm away from my laptop, I'm absolutely helping my family. Just this weekend, we worked some cow-calf pairs and put them out on wheat. I definitely was in the mix of that. My family has a really fun operation. We're a satellite facility for Trans-Ova. So we have a lot of donor cows, a lot of recips we're running. There's all kinds of fun and interesting cattle on our place at any given day.
I love listening to you talk about this.
It's fun to talk about.
So in Indiana, is there any farming going on?
Sure. So in Indiana, my family is historically grain farmers. They still are. My great-grandpa actually was a dairy farmer. Actually, he was at one point the Indiana Dairy Farmer of the Year.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, his face blessed the cover of Successful Farming in almost 50-plus years ago. So my family has some very diverse ag backgrounds. No one raised beef cattle in Indiana, so we've kind of taken a turn in agriculture, but it's really interesting to see that while we have always been in agriculture, we have not always been in the same aspect of agriculture.
Which is really cool. So does that make you an Oklahoma Indian?
Yeah, I like to say my genes with a G are from Central Indiana and my genes with a J are from Southwest Oklahoma, where a lot of the cotton fields are. So I'm definitely a transplant by nature.
I love that. Love it. Your dad then went from grain to cattle, and how did that happen?
Great question. So my dad's side of the family was actually more into woodworking and wildlife side of the whole very large community of agriculture and forestry, et cetera, and food. But he grew up with this passion of wanting to be, I would use the romanticized term of a cowboy, even as a child. So he always worked in ag. He actually ran some hog barns in Central Indiana, and he just knew that he wanted to get out here. So they just took a risk. my mom and dad and said, we're going to do this. We're going to load up a potbelly of our cattle, at the time, just some commercial cow-calf pairs, and we're going to do this. We're going to jump into the deep end. And they did. And I'm in middle school, and I had to explain to my middle school classmates why we would move to the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma. I never even seen a dirt road before. In central Indiana, all country roads are paved. So that was a very huge culture shock to me. But I actually told my classmates in sixth grade that I was part of the Witness Relocation Program, because honestly, that was more believable than my parents just decided to move to Oklahoma for no reason, which was the truth. They decided, so they did it.
That is so Brooke Clay.
It is.
So Brooke Clay.
And I mean, I'm going to send you a picture of my dad so you can share with your viewers so they could see it on my social media. But if you were to see my dad, he is a denim on denim, mustache wearing cowboy hat. He looks like Sam Elliott. He acts like Sam Elliott. Like, he was meant to be in this role. He is thriving. And so it's really hard for me to even picture him living and working in central Indiana, because it doesn't make sense. He was just made to live the life that he's living now.
That's really, really cool that he was able to move out there and live out his childhood dream.
Absolutely.
The more and more people that I meet and I interview who are so close to being first generation is incredible to me.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of is, it goes against, I think, the general thinking in agriculture that everyone is, several generations into operations. It just blows my mind how many people I have interviewed who are first generation or who had a childhood dream and they have busted their butts and have been able to live that.
I think it's really interesting when you think about, while my family has been involved in agriculture multi-generations, just like you're saying, my dad started with nothing. He's very much a first-generation rancher. And you're right, there are so many people in this exact same boat. I work on a show, Chasing Down Madison Brown, as a producer. And this past weekend, we were in southern New Mexico meeting with Jay Hill. And, what he's doing is very much first generation. He has started with 10 acres of onions. And now, oh my gosh, he's running so many acres of produce. And man, that takes some serious cojones to just jump into ag in that level. And I have so much respect for people who are able to take that risk.
Jay is a great example, and I do have an interview with Jay, actually. Did you know that he farms lipstick?
Whoa, wait, no, I did not know this. What do you mean he farms lipstick? I guess chili?
Yes. Some of the chilies that he grows are then sent to a plant that I think breaks it down into a powder, and then that powder is sold to cosmetic companies, and it goes into the coloring of lipstick. Isn't that wild?
That is wild. He did not tell me this. This would have been a great segment for the show that was not included. Do you know how many Ulta and Sephora points I spend on lipstick that probably uses chili?
I didn't know. I mean, it's kind of reassuring that it's a food that's going into the coloring of lipstick, creating that color.
Right.
Yeah, I was really, really blown away by that. Yeah, we'll have to talk to Jay. I can't believe he missed that.
I want to know what brand his chilies are making. Is it Mac? I need it to be Mac, not an ad.
I don't know, but I bet if you go and listen to the episode on the podcast that I recorded,
I hear you. Okay,
maybe it's in there.
Okay.
What is this program that you're doing?
Sure. So Chasing Down Madison Brown is a show with host Madison Brown. She grew up on the road. Her dad is a country music artist, so she grew up in a tour bus traveling the country. She is now a 20-something adventuring across the United States, and she has created this show that is based loosely on growing up in a tour bus, of meeting the coolest people So her show touches on food, farming, and people. There are 26 episodes a season, which means that's 26 opportunities to meet with some really cool people across the country. So far this year, we've been to a chili farm, or, Jay's farm. We have been to an egg production facility, an egg farm in Arizona. We've been to an almond farm. We've been to hunter-jumper events in Florida. And we have 13 more episodes to go. It is an incredible opportunity to connect the urban constituents who follow Madison online to the rural people who support our food system across the country.
It's really almost my podcast, but in television.
Absolutely. And because of Madison's background, she's very familiar with agriculture. She is a sharpshooter. She's very intelligent. She's able to really tackle those hard-hitting subjects. But her followers are very urban. She grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and the people who she's building this community with are very much not the choir in agriculture. So she is bringing a whole new viewership to not only RFD TV, but to all of these show participants, which is really incredible.
Very incredible. We do not have enough people that are able to find that type of channeling and bringing in people outside of agriculture. So that is very exciting. And she's cute as a button.
She is cute. She is very cute. I think it is a double threat when you're able to find someone who is not only very intelligent, but also, knows how to fix your hair. And I mean, she could give me some serious makeup lessons. Her mom is actually a makeup artist, which I think is really cool. Her mom works on, grew up in LA, and so she has a very diverse background and family members. I do have to give this plug. One of my responsibilities is finding the topics for the segment called Pork Chops and Applesauce. The board who I report to, it's called Farming to Fight Hunger, who I work with on this project, and we help find heavy-hitting ag topics to tackle. And Madison's uncle is Christopher Knight, who you might know as Peter Brady. He actually hosts that segment. And so every week he talks about something from GMOs to what is sustainable farming to free-range chickens, what's the difference between free-range and caged chickens. He just really tackles it and talks to experts and kind of gives his 2 cents. It is part of Madison's show. So every single episode includes a segment called Pork Chops and Applesauce. Are you familiar with that phrase? Does it resonate with you?
Oh my goodness. It's something that's said here like a couple times a week. Yeah.
Really?
And oh my gosh, yes. And
I love that so much. When I told my mom, I told her about this new project back in January, and I said that one of my responsibilities would be working on the segment Pork Chops and Applesauce. And she goes, I just love Peter Brady. And I didn't even tell her that he was part of it. And I said, oh, you do? I didn't know. And she immediately knew that's who had said that, which is great.
To be honest, until right now, I did not know where that came from.
Yep, it is actually part of the Brady Bunch. It was a part of one of the episodes. Yeah, I'll send you a YouTube link. I had to actually Google it to make sure I was referencing the right scene. So I will send that your way.
When he says it, does he say it with some excitement? Because it's a Schweigert thing. It's not something from my side of the family. It's from Jeff's side of the family. And when they all say it, I don't say it that way, but it's like pork chops and applesauce. Is that normal?
Yeah, so Peter, we'll have to get the video out, but Peter in the show is actually, I cannot remember who he's mimicking, but he is doing an impersonation of someone when he says it. It's very much on par with what's going on in the show. So the Schweigerts I think they're on brand.
Which is totally not normal. Now I know where the phrase pork chops and applesauce came from, and it really resonated with my kids, and my kids love to say it. It's very funny to learn this. So Chasing Down Madison Brown is on RFD TV. Is it already on, or did I hear that it starts June 1st?
So we are in the first half of Chasing Down Madison Brown Season 2, which means we have a brand new episode every Friday night at 9 Central. We will take a summer break, which is great because new viewers will have the opportunity to watch our episodes that started airing in March. Some of those episodes include 5 Mary's Farms, which is my favorite episode that we have filmed so far. But we will pick up this fall with 13 fresh new episodes. So if you're a new viewer, I would just hop in on Friday night, set your DVR. I believe Jay Hill's episode airs June 1st. So there are a lot of great things that you can catch on Friday night with your family.
I can't wait to see this. I may get him in trouble again. Did you talk about the old chicken buildings that they are renovating and how they've used the chicken litter that was left over?
We toured the facilities. We went all over the land.
Awesome.
It is incredible. They had just cut hay from that brand new drip irrigation pasture that they have put in. Mm-hmm. It is incredible to see. They're in the process of taking the old chicken barns and converting them into greenhouses. So we saw the very first of the series in person. They are awesome. I cannot wait until this farm is done because it is going to be a complete transformation. I had so many questions about the process and how long it will take before, the water has been completely filtered from where it was. And I just think in ag, it is so great that we are telling these stories because things like what Jay and his team are doing and bringing those water levels back to where they should be on a problem that they didn't cause. Like they bought this farm and then started fixing it. People are doing stuff like this across the country. I don't think what he's doing is entirely unique because farmers and ranchers, they're doing these things all the time to better their communities. We just happen to know about this one so we can talk about it.
I hope that you are able to find more examples of that to put on Chasing Down Madison Brown.
Absolutely. And if any of your listeners have examples of this type of sustainable farming, let us know. Send us a message. Visit madisonbrown.net, fill out the contact form, send me a tweet. Like we are tracking them down and we are ready to chase down these opportunities. And we are very much in the planning stages of the second half of the season. So it is not too late to send us ideas.
Excellent. And I'll get a link to that put into the show notes as well.
Great.
That'll hopefully help you out.
Thank you. Well. Much appreciated.
So as much as I love talking about this project that you're working on, and I love that you're able to do that and you got pulled into that, we really wanted to concentrate on a subject that is near and dear to our lives.
Sure.
And that is colon cancer and colon diseases. Let's start with your story. If you could share your story with the listeners about why colon cancer is something that you put high priority in your life.
Absolutely, Jenny. So this is something that I've really concentrated on talking about the past few years. When I was 6 years old, I lost my 25-year-old dad to colon cancer. I think it is important that I spend some time describing my dad because it is so shocking when I say 25 years old. My dad was 6'8". He went to the gym twice a day. He was a bodybuilder. He was a handsome, young, vibrant college student at the time. He had a full-time job as a lineman. He was a healthy individual who lost a battle with colon cancer at 25 years old. And that's not only shocking to a lot of people, especially my doctors when I fill out medical history, but it's also something that is almost becoming too normal in the year 2018. I think at least once a week I read another story about someone who is in their 20s who is fighting or has lost a fight to colon cancer. And I think the awareness behind it is not to where it should be. I think obviously all cancers and all diseases should have a level of awareness, but historically colon cancer is thought to be something, you must be 50 plus years old and a male to even consider that this could be part of your life, but it isn't. That's not true. It's unfair. And I think what's important to me is when I have these conversations with anyone about my family history, I always ask, do you know your family history? Because while colon cancer is something that is going to be a conversation that I have with doctors for the rest of my life, heart disease might be a subject other people tackle. And I think knowing our family history is such an important part of living and pursuing a healthy lifestyle.
I agree with that 1,000%. I want to go into that. And as someone with Crohn's disease, I am high risk for colon cancer. It's like, man, if they are healthy and take care of themselves and they get colon cancer, and I'm even higher risk, it's really, but the thing about going back and looking at your family history, don't take that for granted, because I don't really know on my biological dad's side any of the history. So when we go through all those questionnaires like you were mentioning, I don't really have a lot to share. I am assuming that that's probably how I ended up with Crohn's disease, but I don't know that for sure. So if you do have that information and you know it, it is really essential that you share that with your doctors so that they can do gene marking now and see just how much at risk you are. So that's a very good point, and I'm glad that you're being a voice for knowing your family history and sharing that with your doctor. And even if you have, irritable bowel, that's something that you shouldn't just, I guess, live with. And I know a lot of people do. That could be an indication of something great.
Yes. Sure. So let's just talk about it. This is my favorite thing to talk about because you know what? Everyone loves boobs. Everyone wants to save the boobs, we should save the boobs. Everyone loves the tatas. I get it, right? Pink in October. But you know what we also should love? The booty. Let's save the booty. We all have a booty. The Kardashians got voluptuous booties. Like booties are here to stay.
Right.
And so here's what I can tell any listener here. When I was first tested, I had a colonoscopy. At the time, that was the best option for what my doctors recommended. There are other ways to test now that are less invasive. However, that was the right fit at that time. And if a 19-year-old college girl can go get a colonoscopy, like there is no excuse for anyone. You don't remember any of it. It is fine. It's not embarrassing. Like just get over yourself and do it.
Such great advice.
Right? Like I think the big thing is, would you rather go in for an hour, an in and out procedure? I mean, it's like getting your wisdom teeth pulled. Like you're not driving yourself home after that, so you can sleep it off the rest of the day. Would you rather do that for one morning and find out everything's fine, or put it off and spend who knows how many years in a hospital bed or at home and people all up in your business then? Like then there will be nothing off limits. So I would say just take the easy route. Just start the conversation with your doctor, save the booty, march yourself in for some conversations.
So I've had Crohn's almost 23 years now, and from the very beginning to now, they have come a long way with the different kinds of preps, because I think the preparation is really where people get stuck. Maybe not necessarily the actual procedure, but they have come a long way with the different choices. If they tell you that you can only have Go Lightly, that's BS. There's lots of other options.
There are. It's fine. Like, just suck it up.
Yeah.
Everyone who's probably listening, I don't know all of your demographics. I'm sorry to offend anyone. But, like, whatever stuff you have to drink or any pills you have to take, I promise they are not as bad as some of those cheap shots you took in college.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm serious. Like, it's fine.
Analogy.
Just throw it back.
Yeah, just do it. Just do it. So one of the topics that we wanted to kind of dive into, and I don't know if I told you this because I don't think it had happened since we talked last. So I went into my last appointment and I sat down, and they've got this television screen that's going, and it talks mostly about, healthy living, this and that, and all of a sudden
I know where this is going.
Segment comes up about avoiding genetically modified food to keep yourself from getting irritable bowel disease, which is Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. I was furious. I could not believe that I was watching this in my doctor's office.
For sure.
So before I go off, go ahead and share your feelings.
So obviously, we all go in for our yearly checkup, or I hope our listeners go in for yearly checkups. And because of my family history, I often sit through advisement or recommendations about what type of lifestyle I should eat, what I should not eat, what I should pursue, exercise, etc. And I have sat there on that table in a doctor's office as a doctor, a trained medical professional, has told me what they perceive is wrong about agriculture and how that type of agriculture negatively affects my body. And what I can say is that is a scary place to be, sitting in a medical professional's office or on the table in the exam room when a trained medical professional, who should be the one person you should trust, is telling you everything you know that is not true. They're telling you that it's true. And, we know that there are studies that come out every year about there is no study proving that GMOs are bad for us in any way. We know that they positively impact growing food for a rapidly growing world population. We know that they limit the amount of chemicals we need to put on our crops. Mm-hmm. There's so many positives, and there is no proof that it's negatively impacting our person. But that's a scary place when someone is telling you these things. So of course you want to listen. Of course you should. And so because I have my background, in agriculture, I'm able to sift through those things and push back a little bit and say, can you tell me why? Is there a case study? And oftentimes those doctors, they don't have case studies. It's just an opinion. That's a scary place.
Yes.
And that makes me really nervous for our population, because that is who we should trust, are our doctors.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. That doctor is essentially keeping me going and keeping my body going. The decisions and the recommendations that he's making are making my body continue to work. Mm-hmm. Ironic part of that is they are prescribing biologic. Basically, I am on a chemotherapy drug. I mean, they have to go through all the protocol when I get infused with my medication, where they have to be covered up and they have to be gloved with special gloves and everything. So while he's prescribing that to me, he's also an official on talking about genetically modified food. There is no study that has proven that technique to be dangerous. I always see that meme about how many people have died from genetically modified food versus how many have died from starvation.
Right.
For me, that is just such a scary place to be.
I think it is. I do believe it's important that as humans, we are inquisitive of the food we consume, mm-hmm. and to be inquisitive of agriculture. In agriculture, there is no way, if I started today and worked 8 hours a day of just learning about every in and out of every aspect of agriculture, from transportation to logistics to chemical application, et cetera, it would take me years to learn every single thing. And once I got to the end, I'd have to start over because so much change had taken place. So I am a naturally inquisitive person. However, I research these things, and I hope that those sitting in that exam room are not taking those recommendations at face value, and they are researching everything that they are hearing and pushing back as well.
But how many times do you think that actually happens?
I mean, I don't.
That's the scariest part for me, because I sit there and I hear this and I know different. And like you, I can challenge the doctor and ask for a study. They can't provide that, but yet there's all these other people who go in there and just take it for face value. Mm-hmm. The whole thing just is mind-blowing. And I don't understand why, and this is the same, I think, for dietitians, although if I understand correctly, it's kind of changing. But when they go to school, they're not required to take any type of agriculture courses or food courses to become an MD.
I see a lot of it as a negative, but I more so see it as a positive, as an opportunity to build relationships as farmers, ranchers, scientists, agriculturalists, to say, hey, where did you get this research, doctor? Can I provide some research to you? Would you be willing to read it? You know that doctors are constantly learning and evolving themselves. They want to be really good at their profession. And so maybe this is an opportunity for us to say, hey, I read this really great case study a week ago about this. Would you mind if I shared it with you? And to be that resource for them just as much as they are a resource for us.
I love that. So this kind of goes along with also a podcast that with What the Farm with Leslie Kelly and Rob Sharkey. Mm-hmm. Their guest was a dietitian. The big takeaway for me from that episode was we've got government regulations, we have all these recommendations from dietitians, and all of this information that's out there. We rely way too much on all of that, and we need to step away from that and actually be accountable for ourselves. Really investigate and ask questions, not be solely relying on government and, things that you read in the media. Mm-hmm. That would be one call to action.
I don't think there would honestly be anything to add. I mean, if there was one thing that I would add to this conversation about cancer in general, all types of cancers, it's that I am so grateful for how advanced technology has become in science. Mm-hmm. Because I believe if my early 20-something-year-old dad would have been an early 20-something-year-old dad in the year 2018, mm-hmm. I think it would have been not only a different story, but a completely different outcome. Mm-hmm. And had the stigma around booty been different, I think my dad would have had conversations with his doctor a lot earlier than he did.
That's a very good point. I first went to a doctor in 95 because symptoms had gotten to the point where, I'm just going to say it, I was bleeding.
You needed to go to the doctor.
But, so 95, I was, and I'm totally aging myself here, but I was almost a sophomore in college. And I had been dealing with symptoms from the time I was like a sophomore in high school, but I didn't want to talk mm-hmm. about it. It was embarrassing. I can remember laying in the nurse's office, being in so much pain. And I can remember, hiding in the bathrooms and things like that. I want to knock that stigma out the door and save our booties.
Save the booties. New hashtag.
Save the booties. Mm-hmm. You're right. It just isn't something that's talked about. But it's embarrassing. It's not something you want to talk about, but it's a fact of life. We all have booties. We all go to the bathroom. And
Yep, every day.
Right, every day. And the way I guess I approach that is I call it your output. So if you're not comfortable with talking about going to the bathroom, talk about your outputs and how your outputs are looking. And compare that to your inputs, from a farming perspective, I guess.
Oh, my gosh. We took a weird turn. We took a weird turn in this, and I like it.
But we're connecting. We're bringing it full circle. So I have several calls to action that I want to mention from everything that we've talked about, because we've covered quite a bit here. Before that, though, I've got a couple, fun questions that I just am curious to hear about.
Great.
What was the most significant part of your college career?
Like accomplishment or greatest memory?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Give me an accomplishment and then give me a memory.
Sure. Okay, so accomplishment, I don't talk about this often, but I will because you asked. I was the Oklahoma State homecoming queen. And the reason that I am proud of that is because I was not a member of a Greek organization. So I did not have that community supporting me, but I did have the community of the College of Agriculture. I worked my way through school, so I managed at one point 3 different student jobs while being a full-time student, while being leading many organizations across campus. And that was, to date, the most strenuous application and interview process I've ever gone through in my entire life. I do not think it will be matched, but that was really cool. And I would say my favorite memory from college, this is a good one. It was actually in graduate school, and it's not like a party memory at all. It was just a memory where I knew I was on the right track as far as my career. So I was in graduate school in a course about communications, and at the time in that there was a member of a old school thinking state organization, not a member, a staff member of that organization in the class with us, so an older gentleman, and we were talking about digital media, and this would have been 2010, so not that long ago. And that individual told me that their organization would never have social media, would never use websites to push any of their content, would never create video for online. I remember looking at him and saying, that's great, but you will get fired. You will no longer have your job. But if that's the hill you're willing to die on, then more power to you. And I just remember thinking, wow, I'm going to have conversations just like this a lot in the next few years. And I do not mean this in a malice way, but that person no longer has that position because they were unwilling to change with communications and how digital was going to infiltrate every part of our lives.
This could be a whole other episode.
Yes, but I just remember looking at him and saying, I just remember being so empathetic to him saying, you're going to get fired. And he did. I think as communicators, it's very important that we are constantly evolving and learning.
And right now, media is evolving, and I don't think everyone exactly knows where to go.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that everybody needs to be more open to...
Absolutely.
That's a great memory and a really great piece of advice for people. You are a good friend. You are also,
thank you.
And we are 10 years difference in age, but I view you as a mentor. In the last year and a half, you have gone through quite a bit in your life.
Sure.
And I think of you as the comeback kid who came back kicking ass and taking names.
Well, thank you. That's a very large compliment.
What are some words of advice that you can give someone who maybe feels like they're in a really bad place in their life? What are some pieces of advice that you can give someone who is in maybe one of the worst situations of their life and how they can be a fighter?
So on my very hardest day, the day where I needed to make a decision on if I was going to stay in a hard place or go through a harder season to get to a good place, I did the hardest thing I've ever done, and that is I reached out and I asked someone for help. And I am a very, very independent person. And so for me, asking for help is a sign of weakness. I've since learned that it took a lot of strength for me to make that phone call. And so if you or someone is in a place where they know in the pit of their stomach, in their heart, in every fiber of their being that they need to make a change, whatever the situation is, ask for help, because you don't have to do it by yourself. And the second piece is, it is impossible for anyone to know, regardless of the situation, what's going to come next. Just like when you're a senior in high school and you're going to college, it is impossible for you to know everything, to know what to expect. But all of a sudden, you're a freshman in college and it's all falling into place. It's kind of like that. Just take the first step, because you don't need to know steps 13 and 14. You just need to know steps 1 and 2. So just take the first step, and you're going to have to figure it out as you go. But I promise all of the steps will fall in place. It's okay to get verification from the people around you. You know, for me, in the situation I was in, it was not only my friends and my family, but also trusted professionals. My situation, I'm not really ready to talk about it fully and what that was. And honestly, I think that's in my past. I don't want to talk about it because I'm looking at moving forward. But when people are coming to you, I had 2 friends who drove 11 hours one way just to have an in-person conversation. And when people start making those big gestures, whether it's a doctor or friends that live out of town or whoever it may be, and just, it's okay to listen to them. Mm-hmm. Open your ears a little bit and say, okay, I need to step outside of whatever bubble I'm in right now, and I need to listen.
Asking for help is absolutely not a weakness. It's a sign of a person who has strength, and you are one of the strongest people I know. I could not be happier for listening, especially in the beginning as you were talking about being back in Oklahoma and your involvement with Chasing Down Madison Brown, and the way that your life is now is so inspiring. And I know the listeners maybe can't appreciate this as much as I'm able to, being able to have known you for several years and watch you go through all this transformation. I'm just so happy for you.
Thank you, Jenny. That means a lot more than you could possibly know.
Well, so we have gone way over in the past.
Every time.
Yes. But I want to end this episode with some calls to action, and make sure you stop me if I miss anything. First, we're going to start with Chasing Down Madison Brown. Make sure that you watch that on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Central, and that is on RFD TV. The second part to that would be encourage your friends and family who are not familiar with agriculture to go and watch that. And I really hope that it gets picked up outside of agriculture. But I love that Madison has such a big following in the urban segment. Then let's move on to checking your family history. Make sure you know your family history and you're sharing that with your doctor. Get your booty checked. I can't stress that enough. Get those booties checked. Save the booties. and be your own advocate when it comes to health and taking care of yourself. Make sure you go and listen to Jay Hill's podcast episode with Keeping Ag Real, and he will be on Chasing Down Madison Brown on June 1st, and that will be an extraordinary episode to see where he started and where they are today.
I think that's it. Well, thank you for having me, Jenny. I'm always excited to be part of your project.
Thank you for letting me interview you, and thank you for interviewing me for the 1-year anniversary of Keeping Ag Real. And I'll put a link into the show notes so people can go and listen to that episode because it's really funny. Well, thank you. You have a busy schedule, so I will let you go and get back to your busy life.